Wired Axcess.
We'll do it live.
Wired Axcess.
Do it live.
Wired Axcess.
We'll do it live.
Wired Axcess.
Welcome to another Hurrdat production of Wired Axcess Podcast. I'm your host, DJ K-Dub Omaha. And if you like this episode or any other, don't be afraid to subscribe via our YouTube. Just click that little box, hit the thumbs up. We appreciate it. It helps other people find this message. And to my left, I have the head coach of the Papillion La-Vista Monarchs softball team, Coach Todd Petersen. Then to his left, I have my man, Brian Southworth, the owner of Wired Training Center. Go check them out if you or your son needs some baseball to get you to future coaches and owner. Welcome to the show. Man, 17 years is an amazing ride, but your ride before yours was the opening beginning that you just want to keep on rolling with them. What sports and what got you to go from playing sports and then becoming that coach that you are today?
Yeah. So basically, I played everything when I was a kid, and I actually came to Papillion as a teacher years and years ago, and I was coaching with the baseball team, and then I got out of teaching, and the reason I got into softball is my daughters played. So
it always takes one,
started,
right?
so.
It always takes one. You always wonder, is it, because there are some coaches that give that love before, and obviously you had baseball. You didn't have a son on the team. You didn't have anything leading you there, but you're obviously picking up tools and stuff from that baseball experience. You get into softball. You got the daughters going. How was that when you first started?
It's interesting when you coach your own daughters. I coached them in club ball, and then they were actually played for me my first few years, and Brian's sister actually was on the same team. And so it's different when you have a daughter on the team, and I have other assistant coaches that have had daughters on the team. Clint Holscher this year is his 10th year with a daughter on the team, and it'll be the last one.
I know.
So it's interesting to watch how they are when they coach, when a daughter's on the team or not. And so for me, it wasn't that difficult being the head coach, because you got to kind of stay focused on everything that's going on. But there's no doubt it's different when you have somebody, one of your own on the team versus you don't.
And Brian, of course, you went from playing baseball, then you decided to learn more technique on the baseball, and you have your own son. You're dealing with it now where you're teaching your kids. You are having trouble finding time because your kids' age range is a little bit hard. Did you have that also when you were growing up? What was the age range between your daughters?
They were all 3 years apart, and the first two played. The last one decided she didn't want to play softball, and so she told me that when she was like 9. So, so it made it a little easier for
a lot of money along that
saved a
path.
lot. Well, she was in dance, so not so much.
No, they canceled the same.
But it was interesting to see, and there was a lot of traveling and things like that. And I coached the one, and not so much the other one until the first one was done, and so it was. Trying to find the time for all of them, but also at the same time, just the team itself and things like that. I mean, there's no doubt that's a challenge, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and then you don't have anything to do.
Brian, of course, yours are young. You're just now getting where they're one after the other. What is it like for you trying to be the head coach, be someone who also trains other kids, and then also be dad?
Man, I think it's tough because, you have your kids, obviously, but I think you'll probably relate to as soon as you start, coaching, you find yourself having a lot more kids than you knew you actually had. So, each of those kids you treat like your own. I know it's sometimes hard to balance, like, hey, I need to be dad here. I need to be supporting my kid and get him to everything he needs to do. But I also got, on my baseball teams, like, hey, there's 10 other kids that have trusted me with their futures, and, and it's tough. It's an investment. So it's a really hard balance, but you got to try to find time for everything.
Well, and Coach, you said you came to Papillion. What brought you to Papillion out of everywhere in the Nebraska area?
When I got out of college, I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to be a coach since I was very young, and I had opportunities at a couple small high schools, be the head basketball coach at these different places, and I just decided, for me, it was come to the big town because I grew up in a small town, and so I ended up at Papillion, and then I was first helping on baseball, and I actually was, believe it or not, the boys cross country coach at Papillion at one time in my skinnier days. And so I did that. And then, so I had a lot of different experiences and things like that. And I also, some of the coaches that I was around, not only through high school, but, as when I was at Papillion, I gained a lot from that. And So I've just always loved it. And I think the great piece now is, I don't teach, but I get to do the, honestly, the part I like, which is the coaching part.
Well,
So,
and you said you came to Papillion. It was something that to get a head coaching position might be a little different. We just interviewed a couple episodes ago. We interviewed Gene Sir.
Oh yeah.
Where he talked about he had to go outside to Ord, Nebraska in order to get back into the Omaha area as a head coach.
Yep.
In softball, how is that different? And what was that experience like of trying to get to the head coaching position?
Yeah. So for me, what happened is 2 years before I became the head coach, Coach Govic hired me as an assistant. So I coached in the program for a couple of years. And so when he left and went to Creighton, it just made sense where I was able to take over. So it was pretty easy for me in that respect. I think otherwise it'd have been very difficult to get in. But those couple of years were valuable because I learned about the tradition that was already there, and some of those things, and tried to, continue that on and continue the success. But I also learned really quickly that you got to be yourself. Who you are as a coach is who you are. You're
not trying to match and be exactly him. You're taking the values, the culture, the tradition.
Yep.
Brian, he said your sister was a part of some of that tradition. What is it like to see the coaching transition from one to the other when you're already at a school that is developed like that? It's always a kind of a coin flip. What are you going to get? What's the next coach going to do? What do you remember, or do you remember when your sister was going through that?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think there was too much changes year over year. I still remember my sister going to practices all summer long, right? The Hallex they run, right? It's I don't know if there's a program that probably works harder than Papillion softball. What they ask these girls, and they show up every day. It's pretty incredible, and there's no coincidence that there is a success.
It's going to adapt to that way it is and still make them feel that they can learn off of your program.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely not for everybody, but on the other hand, we've had lots of girls that have done really well, went on to college. We've also had lots of girls that were successful in the program or part of the program that they gained a lot from it. And I really think the word I always use with our program is passion. So I said, if you're passionate about softball, you're passionate about our program, you're going to have a good experience. And they have to have that, and you hope they gain, a lot of them are coming around when they're little kids and things like that. So they're around the team. And so they gain a little bit of that as they go. And so I don't know if they know exactly what to expect, but they do have to have a passion for it because it's a lot of hard work and it's a lot of preparation and things like that. But we tell them this is what's going to happen, or this is what it's going to be. And, if it's for you, great. If it's not, it's okay too. It's just just part of what we try to strive to do.
I like what you said. If it's for you, it's going to work out. If it's not, it's okay. I think sometimes parents expect every coach to match up with every kid and be able to get that constant contact between you, the coach, and the player. But sometimes you have those issues. When you look at the select softball world around here, from my eyes, looking outside in, so I don't have any connections, I don't have any daughters, but I do see some movement more than I do amongst the college or the high school rankings.
Yes.
How do you control that at your school? And also, how do you explain to these girls when they're looking at their select teams how important it is not to jump ship because it gets hard? And I only bring this up. You, of course, had Jordy Ball. We had Jordy and Ruby both on this show.
Yeah, sure.
And Ruby said when she went to Nebraska 18, she could have easily went and played anywhere else.
Yes, right.
But she sat behind the best. She learned the best. And now her grit and grind out at Washington is unmatched. When you look at that with the select programs, what's your thoughts and what's some things?
Yeah, obviously it's easier to jump ship on a club program or whatever, that kind of thing. And I run a club organization, and I try to talk to our coaches about that and the parents and the kids. It's not always the grass is always greener, but it is easier to make that switch. And sometimes you have to do that. It's much more difficult in the high school. Some of it depends on the high school, like whether their school is open and things like that. But I do think that, if they show, I don't know, dedicated to what they're doing and things like that, it usually works out. The other thing that's huge is just the parent involvement. Club sports, they're paying to play as well. So they have some, things invested in it that, high school, you can kind of, it's not that you don't talk to the parents, but you don't as much, you don't involve them as much. And I really think that experience, all the experiences are all good for them, and I think the high school experience is great because, they have to talk to me or they have to talk to one of my assistants, they have to have that, it's almost like that grown person, mature conversation, when things aren't going well, maybe you're not playing as much as you want, or, whatever it is. And I think that that's something that we encourage them to do that. And I think it's good for them to do that.
Well, and Brian, you see amongst the select world, there's consistency going through the fall ball, the summer ball. There's so many options out there. How do you make sure that these kids understand that school is still a part of that development and sticking it out for that?
I mean, school is equally as important as sports and how well you do. I mean, if you, it's really set up. If you don't get like a certain GPA or certain ACT score, I mean, you're going to be limiting your opportunities. If you're not above a 3.5, you're probably limiting 25% of schools you can go to right out of the gate. So it's hard, and learning to balance select softball, softball, and school. I mean, it's only going to help you in college because college is only worse. I mean, you're going to be doing more, and you're lifting in the morning, school, practice, study hall and all that.
No teachers following up with you. That's for sure. They're just taking the money. Yeah. And of course, Brian, when we talk about colleges and you look at for baseball, the JUCO route is something. Do you feel like that's something that is also building in the softball world, or is it more of,
I feel like in the last couple of years, it got popular. I don't know, until the transfer portal, though. I mean, it's constantly evolving. But now, I mean, there's like a smaller Division I could be the same thing as a junior college right now, unfortunately, with the transfer portal. But I mean, it's all you just got to pick the school. That softball is a little bit different in baseball because I think at baseball sometimes there's like, hey, the goal is to get drafted and play.
There's that hope.
Where softball, I feel like a lot of softball girls just make better education decisions because they're like, okay, what do I want to do when I actually grow up? Where baseball people sometimes get that confused. Like, well, I'm going to play professional baseball, right?
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Well, and Coach, how do you keep your kids going through the process? What is your involvement, and what do you feel like is some of your strengths, and what are some things that you feel like you're still trying to get better? Because the whole college recruiting process is not the same as 17 years ago.
No, it's changed. I mean, it changes all the time. I mean, you have the transfer portal and things like that, but I think some of the basics are the same. Like you talked about academics. I mean, in softball, just like baseball, I mean, unless you're Jordy Ball or Ruby Malin, you're not getting a full ride. Most people aren't getting a full ride just off softball or just off baseball. It's a lot of partial scholarships and things like that. So the academic money is there. And then the part about, what are you going to do when you grow up? What are you going to be? Sometimes they don't know, and that's fine. But if they know they want to do a certain thing or they want to go, a certain place or whatever, I mean, I don't think that stuff has changed. I do think there are a few more that are doing the JUCO type route because maybe they aspire to play at a higher level than maybe they could, get into right out of high school. So it's some of that. And for me, I mean, the biggest thing that's probably evolved and changed is just that, having more and more contacts with college coaches, so I know a lot of them around this area and across the country. And honestly, got to know probably more of them even when I went through the process with Jordy when she was first, being recruited to Oklahoma. And so there's some of those kinds of things that I can really help the kids with if they, say don't want to stay around here or whatever.
Well, I like that you brought up the Oklahoma scenario. Of course, in this area, everybody thinks everybody goes right to the Huskers. How is it as a coach when people are, I mean, you're hearing it, you're seeing the tweets, you're seeing everything go. How is that like when you're going through that process to just stay positive in what the kid needs, what the kid wants, and know that you're helping them make the best decision for them? I always try to stress that these decisions that these kids are making has nothing to do with the fan base. No. Not saying the fan base can't help, but it can hurt.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that because it's the perspective as a fan versus somebody that's truly trying to help them. And, you know, being a Husker football fan, I feel the same way. Every kid should go to the Huskers. But we know that's not true, and that's not what happens because it's not necessarily what's right for every kid. And with Jordy, it was the same scenario. You know, she was looking at what her different options were, and, you know, to help her with it, that's important because she wanted to try to go to the place that was best for her. And it's just the same when she came to Nebraska, you know, came back to Nebraska. I mean, it was, you know, supporting her and, you know, making sure she thinks through the decision and what, you know, what made sense for her and all that. And, you know, that's really what she did.
And when you look at some of your athletes, you have some where parents are involved, the balls are involved, and you have some that you kind of have to help along the way. How does that help you become a better coach, and how does it help you with the future recruits that come through you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just different experiences, you know, that you gain. And you're right. Some of the parents are going to be more involved than others, and for whatever reason. And so for me, it's just trying to educate them as much as I can based off of what I know and give them the resources I can. And you know, and I think, gosh, I think every situation is different. So for me, that's, you know, it's just like coaching. You can coach for 100 years and you think you've seen everything. Well, and then something else happens. You go, I've never seen that before. And so that's just, it's the same. You know, it's kind of the same with recruiting, I think, too.
Brian, we've seen 17 years of consistency, but we've obviously with the Papillion La-Vista Monarchs seen 31 plus years of consistency. How do you think these coaches continue it with you being a younger coach coming up through the program of yourself?
Man, it's tough. You know, I look at a lot of things that Papillion does differently than I see. I mean, one, like, you guys have a mental coach, right? How many programs have like a mental coach and they're associated? Like,
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know. Some probably,
you know, I know like kind of your routine with your summer practices and stuff. I mean, there's definitely some unique things that they bring in. I mean, and they have a pretty holistic development program that, from what I see, I mean, I love to more like, what do you feel like has separated your guys' program from other programs in the area?
I mean, I will say this: in 17 years, the separation has gotten narrower and narrower because there are so many great coaches out there with lots of different experiences. And, you know, when I even started, there wasn't that many that were doing the summer stuff. You know, now everybody does it, you know, so it's cool to see because the competition level has just went through the roof. And, you know, it used to be where you had a bunch of games that were probably, you know, just show up. To be honest, it's just not that way anymore. And so I think a lot of people are learning from each other, and you know, there's nothing wrong. That's what we should be doing. We should be giving back to the game. But I don't know if there's anything we do different. I mean, I just know that we try to make sure we're working the hardest and we're the most prepared, and, you know, do everything we can there to where at least when they get out on the field, you know, they have the best chance they're going to have, and maybe not always focus on the outcome. You know,
focus on the situations. Obviously, having a strong assistant team, it helps that they had kids coming through to keep them there. But what else do you think keeps the coaches dedicated to the process and wanting to be in these years with you instead of just jumping ship?
Yeah, I think it's like the same as the kids. It's passion. You know, I tell people I think I have the greatest assistant coaches, and there are some schools that have some very good ones. Don't get me wrong, but our coaches, we've had, you know, a lot of them that have been there for a long time. Once in a while, we'll get some new ones that come in and that, you know, kind of brings a different energy or different ideas. But you know, they're all passionate about the program, and they see things that, you know, they're really there to coach, you know, and that is great to see because I think it's easy, you know, say, hey, I'm helping out at so-and-so program. And, you know, what are they really doing? You know, hitting ground balls or something, and that's it. But you know, we value what their opinions are. You know, what they think. We try to we're not always on the same page, and we're able to tell each other if we're not.
I think that's probably the hardest thing is being able to be straightforward, transparent, and where you know that the coach across the way is not looking to overrule or anything. He's just going to give you what he sees and what he knows. And of course, obviously, when it comes to your coaching staff and it comes to environment, what's the biggest thing that you think you started with but have made a biggest change in your past 17 years with this group?
I think it's just continually learning is one thing. I mean, having great assistant coaches. I mean, I think we did when I started, you know, but some of them, they've evolved as well, just as I have as a coach. You know, bringing other ones on into the program, you know, has helped. But like for me, it's like I still go to clinics. I love to get on the internet and look at, you know, different instructional stuff. And And it's like, I tell my club coach the same thing, because there's, all these different coaches. I said, you need to go to that stuff. You don't have to, but I said, if you really care about
what's
it,
your investment?
Yeah, you're invested in it. You're going to do it. And, and you'll listen to some speaker and go, they don't know what they're talking about or whatever, but you'll go to another one and you might pick up one thing or two things. And I mean, that's really why I do it. Cause I love doing that. Cause I love to learn, and, cause it's something I'm passionate about. If it's something that I don't care that much about, I'm not gonna go.
Well, and Brian, of course, you're still looking for these things to help your program, not just the baseball that you're teaching, but obviously at Wire training. What do these clinics mean to you, and how do you kind of help your trainers see the same vision as you?
Yeah, I mean, we invest a lot of time and resources in our continuing education. So, I know you go to NFCA each year, so yep, we'll be there, and then the ABCA, the baseball convention. So it's like he said, like you just got to go to all of them, and you'll pick at the pieces that you like, the pieces that you can bring back to your program, and some of it won't apply, but the best coaches are always learning what's new, what can we bring in the program. And, I think that's really what sets people apart.
Yeah. I was going to piggyback on that. I think like some of the things that you're doing, like that has changed. One is technology. I mean, it's amazing what you can learn and all that from technology and using it right, and you can use it different ways. It's not everybody uses it the same way. And then the other piece I thought of is because you're talking about the, like mental coaches, the mental part of the game. Like we spend way more time on that than we used to. I think that's across the board in all sports, because it used to be just, hey, let's figure out how to field a ground ball, or let's work on hit, you know what I mean? But it's what's going on up here is
the longer I coach, the more important I think that is. That is more than half the battle. These athletes, they can all do the thing. I mean, you hit them grounders in practice, they're going to feel 10 out of 10. But when you make them one mistake in a game, how do you overcome that? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's big for sure.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up that, Coach. What do you feel in the 17 years has been your number one thing that you've kind of help relate with these girls to help them overcome those challenges? Obviously, having a coach is great, the mental coach, but you still have to enforce, you still have to recognize and be able to redirect their energy to the positive side.
Yeah, I think it is a lot it has a lot to do with what you do in practice, trying to prepare them. They always talk about trying to make it harder than a game. Well, I think you can do that like physically and some of the mental stuff, but it's like the game is still a game, when you're in the battle.
Well, yeah, you strike out from your teammate. You're not as upset as the girl that you're like, I've home runned off this girl multiple times, and here we are.
Yeah. So for me, I try to, and our assistant coaches do a good job of this too. I think it's really important to build the relationships with them so that there's a trust, so that they know when you go to battle and it's most important that you got their back. And I think that if they realize that, and they also realize they have teammates that, maybe that day it doesn't work out so well for them, but they got a teammate that might pick them up, I think that helps a lot. So we spend a lot of time on that. And I think just coaches the way we are versus 17 years ago, it's a lot different. I mean, they say I'm soft now, so girls that used to play for me, but it's I don't know.
Well, and of course with the technology and the movement, obviously Brian's had some success using the baseball program to get kids to pitch faster, along with softball to go through some of the program. As you see these programs develop, how much are you talking to your girls and parents about trying to find that extra, whether it is through because I know, of course, Coach Holscher pitches and is willing to teach girls to hit. But what is that talk like with these parents, and how are they receptive to understand that if they don't get this little bit extra of help, you only can coach so much?
Yeah. I mean, I think that almost most girls, pitchers, they're all going to pitching lessons. I'm not going to teach them how to pitch, I could say that I taught Jordy Ball how to pitch, but I didn't. And a lot of them are going to different hitting instructors and things like that. And, the thing that I tell parents, I said, it's kind of up to them what they do and what makes sense. And I think every girl's different on like all they can handle. You have these girls, we have way less girls playing that are multi-sport athletes, but there's some girls that's important for them because they need to compete all the time. And there's other ones that, they'll be, throwing a softball or hitting a softball every single day if you let them. So they, they need to take a break sometimes, So I think that sometimes that's probably the hardest part, what's too much and what's not enough. And it's not the same for every kid. And I wish I could figure that out, but that's the hardest thing, really.
Brian, obviously going through this with your parents, you're in a program, but obviously there's other things that you pull from others. How do you keep that aligned with these parents and make them understand that it's okay to find what works best for your kids?
Yeah, I think everyone kind of has different values and goals, right? So, like you said, they might put more value on multiple sports, and being a great athlete, a 3-sport athlete might be something that's more important with them. Where you might have one girl that's like, I want to play Division I softball. I need to make this all year thing. And with that, and anytime that you have a team of girls, it's going to take an army of people, right? It's not. Todd is not. He'll be the first one. He's like, I'm not going to be able to take you from day 1 to day 3. No one I work with, am I going to exclusively be the biggest impact in his life? It's going to take coaches, strength, trainers, parents, family. It takes an army to raise these people. And I think the coaches that can embrace that and have a team approach with all these people are always way ahead of no, you need to do it my way. That's it.
Yeah, I agree.
Of course, 17th year for you, Coach. 6th championship. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The year 500th win. Of course, Holscher has a couple on you for you being thrown out, but I'll let you and him sell that. He's got one more than you.
It reminds me of that.
I had to bring that up. You look at this year. What's the biggest thing that you took away from it, and how the championship, I think, was a stage that you girls have deserved for years upon years.
Yeah. First of all, the team, it just, we went through some challenges through the season, just like you do every season. And it just kind of shows that, anything's possible. If you stick with it and you have dreams. And we talked about, and we did talk about a lot about getting back to Omaha. Because I told him a story. I said, for whatever reason, when I took over as a head coach, they said, we're going to move this thing out to Hastings. I don't know if that was, because of me or my fault, but anyway, so I've been out there a long time. And I told those girls, I said, I would love to play a game back here in Omaha, see the first game back here. And what was crazy to me, first of all, the stage at UNO's was crazy. The number of people that were there watching all 3 class games, just the excitement and seeing these little girls that came around and were watching, that were, watching our girls warm up and things like that. And it reminded me of, my daughters when it was back at Seymour Smith years ago, and they were little girls like that. And I'd take them to the state tournament and they'd watch, and they thought that was the coolest thing ever, watching Peaches James and different people like that, and then for us as a team, I was just amazed how loose our girls were. And we told them, I said, just have fun, because it is, how can that not be fun, being over there? But, there's a little stress that comes with having, 2,000-3,000 people in the stands, where you used to play it in front of 100.
Maybe the parents, if you're lucky.
Yeah, exactly. So the way that they played loose through the whole, that night, especially, from beginning to end, was crazy. And it just was a lot of fun.
And I think you can't even match the weather.
Yeah.
The weather was just immaculate. The atmosphere was set. Obviously stepped up in that realm. How does that also help their program, and also get these girls to see that these stages are available for them if they want to go get it?
Yeah, I think that's huge, because you see these, young girls, and there are club teams there, club coaches, things like that. I think it's just, they look at, I would imagine if you're an 8-9-year-old girl and you come and watch that game, or, any of the 3 games, you kind of go, that's what I want to do, and I think that, nothing against Hastings, but the fact of the matter is the distance of it, you just don't have as many, people out there watching it. And so, I don't know, that's the way
especially
I look at it.
The longer you get in that tournament, right? More and more people go home. So,
true.
Your most popular games are going to be probably first round,
yeah,
right?
They are. Exactly.
And then after that, to have that championship game on TV, it's so great for the sport.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yeah, I hope that they embrace that. I hope they obviously continue to give these girls the stage. You have a lot that have committed this year. What is it like as a coach to continue to see these girls get to play, but know that their journey doesn't stop with Coach Petersen, and they're looking for that next bite.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because this group, we had a large senior class and not very many more committed before the season. And every single one is just unique. I mean, we don't have any that are going Division I, but we have some NAIA girls. We have some Division II girls. We have a girl that's going to play soccer and softball at Missouri Western, which is just unheard of. She's a soccer goalie at Mo Bird. And so, we worked with them, helped them a lot during the season. And sometimes, we had, I think, 3 or 4 that committed during the season. And sometimes that's kind of interesting when that happens, when you're in the middle of something, especially because you'll have somebody commit and somebody else is going, well, I haven't committed yet, so they have that. You have some of that going on during the fall.
Oh, yeah.
And it's pretty common. And so, but they all have their own journey, and
is
a lot
it a
of it's
distraction much when you have?
It can be. I mean, for us, we try to celebrate it and say, this is really cool, and they'll have their signing day and all that. So we make a big deal out of it from the perspective of, their celebration, but it's not, we have to watch to make sure, because, they're part of a team still and doing what they're supposed to be doing. Right.
Yeah. Well, social media has changed in your time. How do you
I didn't know
help?
what that is.
How do you help the kids in understanding of the importance of it? And what's some things that even yourself, you're like, it's way above my social media grade?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because that can be, it can be a positive, in a lot of ways for the kids and for the team. And it can be for sure the opposite of that. And I don't know, we at least try to talk to them about it and just try to be, if you're committing somewhere or whatever, that's a big deal. You should definitely do that. But like during the season, we try to talk to them about, when you post things and all that, maybe it's about the team. It doesn't, because you'll see a lot of it, I hit 3 home runs and then at the end it says we got beat 8-4. I've always thought that that's really strange, but there is that type of thing going on out there, and there's a lot of peer pressure. They have people on other teams or friends or whatever you want to call it that are doing whatever they're doing, and so because they're doing that, you should be able to do that, and that's it's not. You can't monitor it. You can,
but there's only so much, and I think that obviously starts with the culture within. Brian, you're coming up through the ranks. What's some of the things that you feel like you got to help with the social media when it comes to these kids? They're seeing the athletes they look up to enjoying it. They're seeing all these limelight things, but they're not seeing the struggles, the stresses, the worriness, oh man, who saw that? I always told people, once you post it, someone's seen it. No matter how quick you thought you took it down, somebody's seen it. What do you feel, Brian?
It's tough, like going back to what he's saying, it's like, the 3 home run example, right? But then they lost, this. A lot of these girls look at the social media as like, I need to promote myself to get to these college coaches need to see this, that I'm excelling, but then it's tough because they're kind of putting themselves ahead of the team a little bit, and they can kind of create a culture that you don't necessarily want. So it's tough. There's definitely a balance. People need to understand that coaches will make recruiting decisions based on what is on your social media.
Yeah, that's true.
And I've also talked to an equally amount of coaches that are like, they post too much to social media, I'm not interested in them. So, it's a balance, and everyone's a little bit unique, but, I think definitely sharing the best practices like you're doing is a good step in the right direction.
17 years ago, did you feel like you'd be where you are today? And if not, what's the legacy that you feel you're leaving there at Papillion La-Vista to follow in the footsteps of the coach that passed it down to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, the first answer is no. I had no idea what I was getting into, but it's been it's been a great ride, and I coached boys pretty much until I had girls, and so there's a big difference between the two. But I love coaching girls. I just think that I've been lucky and blessed to be the coach at Papillion La-Vista. The girls that I've gotten to be able to work with and help and build relationships with and things like that. It's priceless. It's like Brian said, they are like other daughters, So I don't know, 17 years. I don't know. Maybe I've had, I don't know, a couple hundred, but and they're all different and they all have different challenges. They all have different, whatever. And it's just, I just love coaching because it's just like this year we only had 3 seniors from the year before and they're all really good players. And so you have a lot of the same players and then you have the next year and it's like, it's a totally different team and it's like mostly the same kids. And so that's what I think is cool about coaching because don't think what's coming because usually you're wrong.
Well, and especially the off season, some kids grow
they do for
differently on what they want.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously had an underclassman pitcher for the championship game that was a star for the year for you guys.
Yep.
What is that like to continue to have the pitching that you guys consistently get there at the Monarchs? And how much do you guys really work on finding these kids amongst the kids that you have?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great story on the pitchers. I'll say pitchers because we had 2 of them and they were both very similar. In fact, Carly, the other one, has, been probably pitched more than Manager Belisco has in the last couple of years. And then Amanda really came on, had a great postseason state tournament, but they're also best friends. So it's kind of cool to see when they totally support each other, but to see them develop, because I mean, that was a concern of us is, how far are they going to be able to take us? And I mean, they stepped up and I don't know if our biggest thing is like, I don't know pitching, but I know that I was a pitcher myself. So I know, okay, you better throw strikes. That's the first thing. There's certain things that like you have to do. And if you don't, you're not going to pitch. Somebody else is going to do it. And I think some of that rubs off on them and try to, be tough when it's in the hardest times. And those 2 have done that for us, actually over the last, couple of years. And, they're just following this kid that's pretty good, from a couple of years ago. So there's nothing they have to, live up to, but to see what they've done and how they've grown. I mean, that's really cool to see because it's not easy. It takes a lot of hard work and they stepped up for us when we needed it.
We'll get you out of here on this. Of course, you got 17 years, lots of girls that have came and gone and came back.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean when these kids come back and want to get back to the program that you helped them build a love for?
Yeah.
But then also take it to the state level, like when you look at a Jordy Ball that was like, could have went anywhere, could have done anything, but they want to get back to either the Monarchs or the state of Nebraska.
Yeah, I think it's super cool. I mean, one, when you have girls come back and, they're either helping with a camp or they just come around to say hello. One of the things that caught me at the state tournament is as part of just like the little girls that were there was seeing all of our alumni, like Megan and her class, she was a senior my second year. And then seeing girls that just graduated a couple years ago. And some I didn't even know they were there until I saw pictures, later because there were so many people there. And I think that's super cool too, because there's a pride. You got Peaches James up doing the color for the television, for NET. You got Jordy Ball throwing out the first pitch. I mean, I don't know if Miller North might not have been too happy about all that.
She didn't want. I want to make sure it's well known. No matter what, she did not want to wear the blue and red jersey only because of the color. And of course, her boyfriend had, Mr. Trey goes, she can't wear that blue stuff. She shows up in the Monarch jersey. She showed up representing, but
she did.
That's a pride.
Yes, it is.
It's a thing that sits with them to not only be there to do that part, but show face on the side with the parents. Be amongst the crowd, be amongst the atmosphere. Your student section showed up and showed out as well. That's not always able to happen when it comes to softball.
Right.
It's not like volleyball. A lot of people come to volleyball after their sports because it's a 7:00 game in their school. So they just got done with football practice. They come right in. Yeah. What was that atmosphere like with those kids?
I mean, I thought it was crazy, amazing. I mean, Miller North had a ton of kids there too. And I envisioned it was going to be like that because when I was an assistant, when it was still in Omaha, and Brian, you might remember this because you were in high school, is the number of students that would come to those games. I mean,
it's crazy.
one, because they could get out of school, but they were there. And I mean, it was going back and forth, and there was some of that going on. Some of that's changed over the years too. But it's just cool, because you get the students involved, and there's a pride in that, with all the. I mean, I think it is, and I always think of football being the first thing. That's pride for the school, but the other sports can bring that in too, and I think so. That was really cool to see. So.
Well, once again, this was a Hurrdat production of Wired Access Podcast. I greatly appreciate the head coach of Papillion La-Vista Monarchs softball, Coach Todd Petersen. 17 years of pride, community, excellence. It all just keeps rolling together with a culture that they have built from a long time ago, and they've held it up high. 6th grand championship for the state. They just finished here in UNO. We also had Brian Southworth of Wired Training Center. Make sure to check them out. And once again, if you like this episode, go and like, share, follow, all those wonderful things, and hit that subscribe button down below and the thumbs up. Let other people know about this episode. Once again, thank you. We'll see you.